You're listening to The Talent Sync. The Talent Sync is a collaborative podcast production about anything and everything recruiting and hiring, literally the kitchen sink on how all things in talent acquisition work together, should work together, and how sometimes they don't. Now it's time to sync up with your hosts, Leah Daniels and Kevin Grossman. Today's topic asks the question, why is it so hard for companies to optimize their recruiting tech stacks? Talent Sync's Leah Daniels and Kevin Grossman welcome special guest Kyle Lagunas, Head of Strategy and Principal Analyst at Aptitude Research. To answer just that and more, enjoy the podcast. Leah Daniels, it has been way too long this time.
Mr. Grossman, I haven't seen you in ages. How are you? How is everything? Right?
Well, I traveled a lot more than I have done of late, and I know our guest has traveled a lot more than I have for sure. And I'm feeling pretty road weary myself, but it's been a good thing. I just got back from another candy workshop that we ran at Blue Cross Blue Shield in Minnesota, which was a lot of fun. Had about 30 folks there, including most of their own team and some other outside. So it was fun.
I realized lately that a lot of times when we talk about our work life, our commute has become the commute to the airport.
It has. Yeah, it does.
How far do you commute? I commute to Logan Airport, and I do it at least once or twice a week. How about you, right? You get like a good laugh out of that, and then you realize actually that is true and somewhat sad. It's also sad when you know the exact price of parking at your favorite airport, depending upon which garage you choose. And I was thinking about this because, Kevin, I know you were traveling a lot for the spring season, but the fall season is almost upon us already.
Already, yeah.
I legitimately looked at Airbnbs for 3 weeks straight in Las Vegas.
Because you're going to be there back to back, right?
Just stay there. What if I just stay there? Because that's where we're at now.
That's for you to choose. That would be really hard for me to do that because a few days in Vegas and I'm done anyway. But blessings to you that you are going to do that this fall for sure. I mean, it depends for me in the airport, it depends on where I'm flying out of. So if I go out of San Jose, that without traffic, it's only about 40 minutes. But then a lot of times when I'm flying across country, I got to go out of SFO because of the flights. And United, so that's an hour 15 to get to SFO. But it's all relative. It's the nickel and dime time that kills us too. But when you blink and it's 2.5 hours later, you're in Minneapolis from the Bay Area. Hey, I mean, it's magical, right? It's a lot of work, but it's magical to arrive in that wherever you're going at the end of the day. I've got an anecdote.
Oh, all right.
I don't know how good it is, but we're going to try it anyway.
I was gonna say, I have a good bridge to our topic from where we're at.
Good.
So,
well, I'll just do mine really quick, and then you do yours, and then we'll introduce our guest, Kyle. So, when we bought our trailer camper, when the heart of COVID was happening, we decided to buy a trailer camper. A bunch of people did too, actually, at the same time. It was the only way we were going to travel and go do things and camping, and we've loved it. But, and our kids kind of have struggled with it, but we had them in the room when we went to vet and kick the tires. And even when we got the financing done, they were there with us. They were part of that conversation. We wanted them to be because they were going to be sleeping in the camper with us, right? At the end of the day. And it ended up working out. Now, unfortunately, the little segue to like systems that we're going to start talking about too. We're not using it as much as we did then. And our kids definitely don't want any part of it anymore. So we're trying to figure out what are we going to do? Are we going to be in it for the long haul and continue to use it and mom and dad go camping since the kids are almost old enough to stay? But they were part of that conversation, right? So now you go and then we'll dive in.
I've been laughing at so you fly out of SFO and you have a preference of United. Kyle and I fly out of Boston, and it doesn't matter what preference you have because it's going to change in a couple of weeks because that particular airline is definitely not flying to that particular location that you need to go to for whatever reason.
Oh, sure.
It doesn't matter. There is no hub in Boston. And I was thinking about our conversation today around technology and these systems and how where you live dictates a bit about which airlines you fly and which routes you can be on and how much you pay, right? I heard this week that IAD is the most expensive airport to fly in and out of for flights because of Washington, the lobbyists, all of the things. IAD, Dulles Airport in DC is your most expensive. You are beholden because of where you live. And, this is a big thing that when you talk to companies and we talk to employers and they talk about their systems, I hear more often than anything, we weren't part of the conversation. They were like, congratulations, here's your new SuccessFactors SAP ATS. Congratulations, you've won Workday. Here it is. It's a gift. And, a lot of companies are doing the best they can with what they've got.
It's a gift. That's really funny. It's a gift. It's a gift that keeps on giving. So here's the thing. I asked at the workshop I just ran, I asked everybody because I had a conversation at one of our ERE conferences the week before with the lunch table group. They were complaining about their ATS. Who hasn't heard that before, right? But they were complaining about their ATS and what they were moving to, that none of them were in the room when the decision was made. And I keep hearing this again and again and again. And I asked the workshop yesterday, how many of you were in the room when the systems that you work on today were chosen? And one hand went up out of almost 30 people in the room, including the host of us. So anyway, without further ado, let's bring in Mr. Kyle Lagunas, Head of Strategy and Principal Analyst at Aptitude Research. Kyle, welcome, and thanks for joining us on the Talent Sync.
Hey, what up, party people?
Who's the party person, Kyle? Come on.
I think that we are about to poop some parties is the sense I'm getting with this conversation today. Party poopers everywhere.
So, Kyle, here's the thing, right? I'm sure, and you have lived this, you've helped to manage systems too, that TAs just, they're not in the room. Why is that? And that's the kind of my first question to you. Why aren't they in the room when these decisions are made?
So I don't know that TA full stop is not in the room. So, maybe we don't need the entire TA organization in the room to make a decision about which system we're going to use. But to the bigger question, does TA always get to decide? No. And look, people, I know we have a complicated job. I know we have an important job, but in the world of enterprise technology, we are just one drop in the bucket of just different considerations that need to be made for the systems that are part of our core infrastructure. Matter of fact. If you are really, really fortunate, you might have a tech savvy leader that is your CHRO and your head of TA both know we can actually build a really great stack on a best of breed ATS. You might get lucky to have that conversation. Most of us, and Leah, I really like the allegory of the airlines. Most of us don't get to really choose, and that is, let's just accept it. And I mean, why create more friction for ourselves by railing against that? Let's just accept it. I think a lot of folks believe, and I don't know if it's correct or not, but a lot of folks believe the ATSs are commoditized. And so maybe SuccessFactors isn't perfect, or maybe iCIMS isn't perfect, but that's what you're going to get because it's what we've got. I don't know that I completely agree with it, but I do know that mentality is out there. It's well, look, there's no such thing as a perfect ATS. So why don't you just use the one that came with the HCM that we get?
Right. That's a good point, right, Leah? But time and again, unfortunately, the users, and this is kind of segueing into the kind of the bigger theme of that, why are recruiting tech stacks so under optimized and underutilized? The users at the end of the day are railing against the fact that, the joke is the day before you implement a new ATS is the day you start hating it, right? And which is not necessarily fair to all the points that you've already outlined.
It's so painful having been on implementation projects. It's damn, really? We work so hard on this stuff.
It's funny because I think a lot of the technology, and I've worked at an ATS, so I've lived through the implementation process. I've worked at database companies, so I understand how databases work, right? All of these things are structured and rigid, and they each have a point of view that I think the organization has adopted into, but often flies in the face of what recruiting is accustomed to doing. So the big guys, the HCMs, they are first and foremost security-centric organizations. They care about accuracy. They want to make sure the data doesn't get hacked. They worry about really big infrastructural components that recruiting does not generally think about. In fact, it's very interesting. Recruiting kind of thinks about even compliance as oh yeah, by the way, we should be compliant. It's not even like a top of mind for a lot of organizations. And so you end up in these conversations with people and they're frustrated because they want a consumer experience on an infrastructure that has lots of PII, has people's financial information, social security numbers, and it's really hard to reconcile those two things. I think that is the piece that gets really tough, is that we have been in this world for so long of one button, consumerism, blah, 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 blah. But shift to like sales, right? The sales product that everybody uses, Salesforce. Salesforce is not sexy and easy to use and so wonderful. No, it's also, I know, it's also got
You're not watching Salesforce porn?
I mean, only on Tuesdays.
No, I mean, at the same time, I know people that really geek out for their Salesforce instance that they've built and they've mastered and they're like obsessed with it. But it's not, the AEs that are feeling that way. It's the marketing and sales ops folks that do.
Right.
Time for a talent sync break.
Hey everybody, Kevin Grossman here, president of Talent Board and the Candidate Experience Awards. Our 2023 Candidate Experience Benchmark Research Program will open in January and run through August 31st. To learn more on how your organization can participate, go to thetalentboard.org.
Break time's over. Now back to the talent sync.
The nerds are really excited about it. They've built a really good process with what they have. I will say the thing about Salesforce that's nice is it's like if you build it, there's an API on it and you can hook it to anything you want. And they do not get wound up about that, right? They'll let you put your data wherever you want, connect it any way you want it. And I think that is actually a big piece of this, is that these companies are building tech stacks. They're not building a single technology. And that's where this gets tough, is when companies say, okay, I have this core platform, but I want to now make it do the things I want it to do. Kyle, like, why can't they just make it do the things they want it to do?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think as much as, although all of these players describe themselves as platform companies, I actually think that your point about like the HCMs are data security and privacy and safe, like that's really like a big part of their innovation. They're locking everything down, like it is easier to have an open source ecosystem for something like Salesforce because the data there is less sensitive than what we have in our systems, and no vendor has like total market share, so like open source isn't like fully viable for every vendor. I'm starting to see the major vendors, like Workday just had like a big developer summit for Workday developers, like that's like starting to mature in our space. But that's part of it. Look at the timeline here. We have not had our own our own technologies in recruiting for that long, actually. I came into the space and actually, Kevin, you were one of my first contacts in the space when T-Chat was a thing. Do you remember T-Chat?
Yeah.
Talent culture. Yeah.
T-Chat's
like every Wednesday or something. Loved them.
Yeah.
Wait, what? I don't know what this is.
But like that wasn't that.
It was,
it was
a Twitter chat. A Twitter chat where we use the hashtag. And
it was the Twitter chat. Don't be humble. Like,
it was fun. We had a bunch of folks that would come, and it was about an hour, I think, once a week, and we'd have a different topic, and we'd moderate a Twitter chat.
It was like that's how I met like other nerds that were geeky about this stuff. Anyway, just drawing that timeline reference because that was 12, 13 years ago. That was right around the same time that Oracle bought Taleo, SAP bought SuccessFactors, IBM bought Connexa Brass Ring. And then you saw this wild proliferation of SaaS-based software for talent acquisition. I'm bringing this up because we are maybe in the third cycle of implementations, fourth cycle of implementations, max. So like this space is still a baby space. There's a lot of innovation. The innovation cycles have been really rapid, but other enterprise systems have been around for a lot longer. So there's more maturity, there's more specialization. And for us, I think we're all still figuring it out. There's a lot of TA leaders, Kevin, who haven't implemented a new technology before, who haven't done a major implementation. And
there's a lot of new TA leaders that haven't even really.
There's a lot of new,
a lot of new TA.
And there's a lot of new talent TA leaders who have made their career out of doing these digital projects, digital transformations, and that's helped them thrust them forward in their career. I'm just saying, I want us to just be mindful of the bigger picture. It's not just feedback for the two of you with this conversation. I mean, it's for the talent acquisition professionals that get really frustrated with the tools and systems that they have. And like, I don't understand why we can't just XYZ. You don't understand why we can't just XYZ. And it's not because your TA leader doesn't want to. It's not because IT hates TA and ignores it. Like, there are a lot of different things at play. And I think, I don't know, we need to start looking at like, how do I make this work? Going back to the airline example, well, which flight can I take? Like, there's no directs. Okay, well, which one is going to actually like not be a terrible layover? Like, we just got to make it work. That is the resilient, like a part of the resilience that we need in recruiting now is, and I'm not coming down on recruiters, I promise, but it's just like, we got to stop bitching about things that we like. I mean, we can commiserate with each other, but leave it there. Like, then just keep working.
But Kyle, I only want a nonstop flight. I only want a nonstop flight.
Then you need to move, literally. You got to move to another city.
Or be willing to drive your 2 hours and go to a different airport.
Or drive 2 hours to go to another airport. I have taken a train down to JFK so I could catch a flight to Korea. That was,
Yeah.
But how do we then? So I get all that. I mean, you make some very extremely valid points as well. But how? And then bitching aside, right? I mean, because everybody's again, anytime you get together a bunch of TA folks, there is griping about the recruiting tech, and there's also those who love their tech too. But is it this lack of how do we get utilization up? How do we optimize?
I love that question. That is actually something that we need to focus on. Yeah, dude. I mean, because like I talk to a lot of folks about like we need to stop when we're trying to run ROI analysis on a system. We need to stop looking at logins and like adoption, like as adoption. Like I say, utilization over adoption. Does that make sense? Like for CRM?
Well, and
expand on that. Differentiate that a little bit more.
Well, Leah, did you want to jump in for
Leah.
a second? Because I'll come back to CRM. Yeah.
I think this is a good one because I was at the Phenom conference a few weeks ago and I sat in this really interesting session and this company was talking about their adoption. And they have 17 countries they were trying to get adoption through. So this is a not insignificant amount of work for them because 17 countries was, I think, 14 different languages. And there's a lot going on there. And they decided that their definition of adoption was going to be number of jobs posted in Phenom in that particular country. That was their definition of adoption, which didn't actually get...
Setting a number, you mean?
Well, no, they were watching. It was a number, I guess. But it was really, they're calculating percentages out, right? So what was the percentages in their ATS versus what's the percentages in Phenom? But it was interesting, right? Because it didn't quite get to the root of the problem, which could be your one high volume person could have been going all in and your low volume people aren't. But they were picking a metric, right? Because they were like, we got to have something.
Or your TAT might be working on one evergreen rec. And so like, how does, I mean, look, but like even in that example, I'm okay with imperfect KPIs, imperfect metrics. And I think that we need to get more comfortable with that so that we can find the right answer. Like we don't have to, you can't start with the right answer. Like sometimes you're lucky and the answer is right in front of you. Sometimes you got to figure it out. And I think the same thing is true for CRM. So CRM, is one of, we talk about recruiters hate their ATS. The one system they hate more than their ATS is their CRM.
Why is that?
Because we didn't design these programs. I don't mean software. I mean like CRM programs intelligently. We just implemented CRM software and thought that then we would have a talent pipelining function, like our talent pipelining operation. Like we didn't really know how to pipeline talent. We didn't really know how to nurture candidates when we didn't have a job right in front of them. We didn't know how to do these things at scale. So we just built a new database to drop all of our disposition candidates into. And then of course, recruiters would assume that there was only trash in there. But it's like, well, recruiter, you didn't go through every single application that came in all of last year. There may very well be candidates that are good. They've already raised their hand, so they want to work here. But going back to the utilization piece, a metric that we used was tracking how many candidates that made it to interview stage came out of marketing and sourcing, which meant they came out of the CRM. You know, like my job in talent attraction is to get interview quality leads. The recruiters and the hiring managers need to work together to find the hireable talent. My job is to get enough people in front of them that they say, like, we're going to double click on this. We're going to look a little further. And so for CRM, then we could see like, oh, right, we are generating useful leads. Not every lead needs to turn into a hire. That's no way for that to happen. But instead of me saying like my recruiters are only logging in once every quarter, like I don't need my recruiters to log in unless they are looking for talent. Like, they're not sourcing on LinkedIn every day either. But yeah, so I'm not looking at recruiter logins and saying that's how I get ROI out of CRM. It's not.
But ROI in any of these things needs to be against an outcome. Logging in is not an outcome right? And the outcome in this case is a hireable slate of candidates or an interviewable slate of candidates. That is a valid outcome. And if you focus on things like that, one of the things that happens naturally is the efficiency of recruiting and recruitment marketing gets better. One of the things that drives me crazy is recruiting is the least efficient thing in a company, right? If you think about how much effort goes out to the market to get an outcome, it's highly inefficient. So if we're focused on outcomes instead of focusing on activities, you naturally find a better efficiency.
I totally agree, Leah. That's the problem that we face, though, is like we just go to the obvious metrics, the activity, and we use that to tell our data story. And it's like, no, babes, like that is probably like career site traffic. I'm just going to keep an eye on it, to just know how it's going. But I love it. I don't care how many times a month a recruiter logs into a CRM. I care if they are getting value out of this pipelining function, this pipelining operation that the CRM underpins.
But that's optimizing then, right? Because it's
Exactly.
optimizing to the outcome, because you're right, because just measuring activities is not going to catch the attention of the C-suite or the business leaders of thinking that recruiting is revenue generating part of the business at the end of the day, if all I'm focused on is activities.
Well, look, I mean, you can't optimize for you can optimize for activity. Leah, I'm curious, like your background in ATS, you've probably seen in these like implementation projects, we do just start getting down into the activities. We do just start getting into the tasks and clicks and workflows. That's just the way that these like implementation workbooks are designed. And so I understand the project teams, you take your eye off the ball because you start going into the weeds. That's part of the implementation process, right? And then you look up,
Worse,
you're like, oh.
It's you start and you ask, like, what are the things you want to measure too? And you hear all the time, well, I want to see how many emails go out. What?
Yeah.
Why? Why? Yeah. There's a bulk email function. Like, I don't understand. Like, what is that going to tell you? That somebody pushed a button? But you realize pretty quickly that you've got a set of metrics that we have fallen on because we don't know what else to measure, or we can't measure anything else. And then when you convert over to a new ATS, worse, you take bad habits with you and you don't have a better solution.
Time for a Talent Sync break.
Hi, Talent Sync listeners. I just wanted to share a bit about JobSync with you all. JobSync helps companies get more quality candidates out of their job board advertising and automates a variety of manual recruitment tasks by solving for the very low conversion rate challenges most companies experience on their career site. JobSync integrates your entire application, including all of your questions, directly into the various job boards' quick apply processes, providing you with fully completed applications directly into your ATS and resulting in 2 to 5 times more candidates while dropping your cost per application by half. This helps return up to 10 hours a week back into your recruiter's time through custom automations that are based on your business-specific recruiting processes. JobSync works with most major ATSs like Workday, SuccessFactors, and Taleo, CRMs, programmatic platforms, and job boards like Indeed and Zip. You can check out jobsync.com to learn more.
Break time's over. Now back to the Talent Sync.
And Leah, I mean, this is where we always try to talk about the marketing and sales parallel in recruiting, but that's where it falls short every single time, right? Because if anybody who has their efficient processes in marketing and sales, and touches to lead conversion to the BDR. I mean, the whole process of getting to a buyer, to a final sale, which is the outcome ultimately that you're looking for on the sales side, this is not happening. readily at all in recruiting as it should be, right? So again, we talk about how there's supposed to be those parallels, but it's still not happening. How do we make that happen then, Kyle, and Leah for that matter? I'm asking you both. How do we get there?
The parallels are fascinating because in part they're right and wrong. So there's similar activities, right? The parallels are activities. You have recruitment marketing. It's about the language, the brand, the attraction. You have the buying process, the selling, the options and so forth. But at the end of the day, you have a position you're trying to fill. You're trying to bring in multiple people who might be interested in that position, who are also, by the way, interested in other positions. Other companies are coming in at the same time. And you have not one person making this decision. Oftentimes you have multiple people making this decision, and a process and time kills deals. So you've got this matrixed overlay that's happening. And so the idea of sales at that point kind of goes out the window, because in a classic sales process, you are selling a widget or a software or whatever it might be, but you have no intention of not selling it to that person. 100% you are selling it to that person unless they say no. You're not trying to
candidates is different.
Yeah, you're not trying to say no to them. You're like trying to get them to say yes. And so there's this complexity in recruiting that is, I think, under-realized. And then, now it happens in some sales process, but you have regulation and compliance. It just is different, right? Those pieces of what you can and can't do and who you have to bring to the table and the activities you have to undergo as part of that process is different than a sales process. And I think that also adds a level of complexity. And quite frankly, the last piece is you have a hiring manager who might just say no.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, I know we like to point the finger at governance or at compliance for ruining all the fun. A lot of times it's corporate governance that's ruining all the fun, like data governance. Like, we can't expose any diversity data in the ATS or the CRM to anybody who is not in leadership at this company. That means for myself, I'm the head of talent attraction and sourcing. I am the one that has to do all of the diversity reporting on top of all of the other work that I have. It couldn't actually be my program leads running those reports because they don't have access to it. And I can't get them access to it because I have to go all the way up to the head of analytics at our company to get them to come all the way down through the red tape and rigmarole to give this one person exception permission. I think that's where it's like when recruiters and TA people, there's I don't understand why we can't X. My response is, I know you don't. And I'm not trying to be shady. I'm really not. It is just the lack of awareness is maybe something that we should be more aware of. The lack of understanding is something we should be more self-conscious about and not necessarily defensive around. None of us who are designing and implementing these tools are trying to ruin your day. No one who is saying you're going to go on your HCM's ATS is trying to say we don't care about recruiting here. It is just listen, baby, it's work. And this system, unless you can show me that it is completely non-viable, it's going to have to work. And that's just what we do here, But at the same time, I have seen a lot of these teams that get they don't get to choose their core system, their ATS. They do get budget to go and have some fun with some other things, and to try new tools or to show up at different recruiting events or hire a data analyst, or a systems integrator to make the core ATS work with other things. It's not like they just completely pull the rug out from under us. There's a little balancing act with innovation on top of what might be less than interesting for an ATS. I don't know.
I love the point about corporate governance being a blocker internally. I think that you make a really good point of that. And as we kind of start to wind down to the end of this particular episode, there was something, Leah, that you wanted to bring up around blocking, what's going on. And I think I definitely want to touch on that before we wrap. So you want to talk about what that is?
Yeah, I mean, you think about these things, right? You've got lots of things that block recruiters' efficiency. So one of them, to Kyle's point, is governance. Sometimes it's compliance. Sometimes it's the technology itself, right? Because the technology has opted for a walled garden approach or has not built out APIs yet, or only some APIs. That's my favorite. And increasingly you see companies taking a proactive protectionist approach, right? Well, we will not allow you to bring your own text messaging solution or chatbot because we offer one. So you must use ours. And mine might not be very good, but you have to, because I have not given you another way to do that. And I think that's increasingly frustrating for companies, because a lot of times the smaller companies can be best of breed and can operate faster and produce new technology and more innovation. I think that's one big blocker. The other one, which I didn't mention to you before, Kevin, but it's a thing to think about, is just the database structure of these things. It's so rigid, right? We live in this object database with rows and columns, and everything has to fit nicely and fit very pretty. And when you take like a resume, which is a highly unstructured document, despite what most candidates would tell you, that doesn't fit nicely into these rows, which makes search and match hard. And so all these things get complicated based on the actual infrastructure of technology today. And I think we're going to see, a whole revolution of, more reactive databases that are less of this sort of old school, but it's going to take 10 years for us to mature there.
I think integration capabilities are going to rapidly advance. I mean, we've already seen it since we moved to cloud. I feel like integrations have gotten better. I think your question here, that's not going to fly, right? And I do think that we as a community of leaders and practitioners do need to come together to be more productive, more collectively pushing for what we need, because left to their own devices, some of these vendors are completely self-serving. Now, I also do know big vendors and small vendors that do genuinely care about their customer and want to improve things, but then, there's still I don't think any of these companies are nonprofits. They're all businesses, right? Nope. They got to make that buck, honey.
They do.
But some of them are big, and they big is relative. It's how are they organizationally structured? SAP, Oracle, and Workday. SAP and Oracle are way bigger than Workday, by the way.
By a lot. So much
massively bigger. Yeah, right? But then even if you look from Greenhouse to iCIMS, they're both relatively, I think, similar size companies now, I think. But Greenhouse hasn't grown much through acquisition, so they might have, be more willing to play with others. They don't have so many assets that need to be fully capitalized. There's a corporate aspect to some of these walled gardens. But look, the market still hasn't fully come back. I am happy to see, more activity in market, but it still hasn't come back. And if there's any vendor listening to this and considering how do we keep so-and-so vendor out of our cookie jar? And it's you know what? No, this is an ecosystem, and your clients have their own everybody has their own unique operating model that with its own specific problems that they need to solve for. Anyone who's trying to put a damper on that, anybody that's trying to get in the way of that, is not going to last another downturn. Because reputation, we've been in recruiting for a long time. Nothing matters more in recruiting than reputation. You know what I mean? And we all talk, and so we're not naming the vendors.
No.
It's a data ownership challenge too, right? I think there's this thing in the US in particular where Europe has made it clear your data as a consumer, as an individual, belongs to you.
Is your data.
But here in the US, your data belongs to whomever you've given it to.
The Wild West, honey.
And so right now, whoever I am, a vendor du jour, am now the owner of your data, right? And that could be the employer. It could be the vendor themselves, all sorts of challenges that come along with that mental model of that's my data. I'll leave you guys on this story. When I worked at Bullhorn, which is an ATS, and I had a conversation with
that was the first ATS I ever used.
Yeah.
Oh, we can talk about that later. I love Bullhorn. So I had a conversation with a job board, which is not a prominent board anymore, was at the time. And I had a conversation that was something like this. We will let you integrate with our data, but if your client leaves Bullhorn or leaves this vendor, you have to take all the data that's in Bullhorn out of Bullhorn and erase it. And I said, wait a minute, those companies hire those people and then time card and pay those people off of that data. I can't erase their data. Well, then they can't integrate with us. Okay, well, have a nice life. And this is the end of the conversation. But that was the perspective. The perspective was the data belongs to me, the vendor. I was a big job board, big job board. And if they stop paying us for the right to rent it, basically, they have to delete it. And I'm you can't delete people's data that you're payrolling. That's not a reasonable request.
It's not. No.
Yeah, you have to identify what is your actual IP, and what is your actual property. No. Yeah.
Wow.
It sounds like you need to update your terms and conditions for all your applicants passing through Bullhorn.
Exactly.
Right. But that's the challenge, and that's the challenge. But anyway, that's where, you know, a lot of these companies haven't gotten any further than that, right? We are still in this, like, that's my data. And I think that's in part cultural here in the US, where we've allowed for that mental model to exist.
Yeah, no, I mean, thank you. And that just kind of connects to what, Kyle, you were saying in the beginning, is that it's still, I mean, I've been in this space since the end of 99, early 2000, and recruiting and HR technology. I have. And until I was running the I mean, it's been I've been a long time.
How old are you guys? I'm just kidding.
But my point is I think you made a good point, though, is it's still early days in a sense too, right? And
it relatively is.
It is, yeah. And in regards to our recruiting tech in particular. But Leah, I think there was a great conversation. And I mean, and Kyle, we totally appreciate your insight. I always learn so much when I listen to you speak and talk about the work that you do, and from Leah too.
Because I had a great time with you guys. I mean, I can tell that all three of us, we actually kind of care about these problems, right?
Yeah.
If I may, I know you're trying to wrap, but I want to interject this one thing that just came to mind as you're speaking, Kevin. It's like, for the TA professionals, whether you're in the leader seat or you're in that frontline delivery seat, resilience is one of the most important competencies for talent acquisition for the future. And we cannot control labor markets. We cannot control economics, like global economics. You know, we also can't control our tech stacks all the time. Now is the moment for us to make the most of what we can, because it'll get you through your current role. It'll set you up for success in your next role. Like, people are looking for change mindsets now, adaptability, like problem solving. We're getting away from like being just a really down, like deep recruiter expert is not enough. Like, we do need to be digitally comfortable with whatever exoskeleton we are stepping into. And like, that's like my word of advice for the audience is like, I know it's frustrating. We have to make it work, or they're going to find somebody that's willing to.
Yeah, exactly. And Leah, every time I do anything Candy Benchmark related or do a workshop, and I'm always telling everybody, listen, you control the dials of everything you do. Sometimes it's maybe not in your control, but at the end of the day, if you focus more on the outcomes of you are helping to give people employment, you're trying to find the best people for your organization that will help grow and sustain your business. Those are the outcomes that TA ultimately should be focused on. We say no to a hell of a lot of people in recruiting, unfortunately. That's the reality. But focus on those outcomes. And to your point, Kyle, be resilient about all the things that are going to constantly change all the time and not stop, like your tech, like processes, like governance, like compliance, like pandemics that will come and go, like leadership changes that will happen. I mean, all these things are going to constantly keep everything in flux that we do, but you focus on those outcomes. Leah, what do you think?
I think we probably just opened up a rat's nest here, so we can do a part 2 in
we
a couple of months.
Actually.
Yeah, just tell me when and where.
We will.
I'm there, baby.
I like it.
All right. Thank you, Kyle, so much. Appreciate you. And Leah, always a pleasure.
Thank you, sweet babies. This was so fun.
Thank you for listening to the Talent Sync podcast, a Candy Benchmark research program and Job Sync collaboration. More episodes soon. Subscribe via your favorite podcast player today.